Okay. Welcome back to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. It is another special interview. We're doing a lot of these recently, but I am very happy to say that I'm joined by somebody who, well, was part of, I suppose, two big groups in the WWE with successes in both. Former multiple-time tag champion as well. It is the artist formerly known as Justin Gabriel. It is PJ Black. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, sir. I'm glad we can make this work finally.
Yes, we've had a little to do with trying to get it to work between me and PJ, but we've got it sorted now, which is the main thing, which is great to have you on. So thank you so much for taking some of your time off your day to talk to me. Gonna just talk briefly, 2024, over the last sort of year in wrestling, so much has kind of happened and changed. I mean, yes, we can look at the TKO stuff, but I'm more interested in like how partnerships have now been formed. Like when you were back in the WWE, would you have ever imagined a scenario where A, they would be going on Netflix, and B, they would be partnering with TNA Wrestling?
No, I didn't see this one coming. But what I can tell you is the only the only thing that you can bank on is change, right?
Yeah.
What's the saying? The only constant in the universe is change, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, wrestling keeps evolving. We have to keep adapting, and who knows, man? I think in the future we're gonna see some cool stuff now with all this new technologies and the AI and the VR and the AR stuff. I think in the future all this stuff will be incorporated into sports entertainment too. I don't know if you've watched the UFC event from
Yeah.
the Sphere in Las Vegas.
Yes.
I think that is the future of entertainment. I think that's the way it's gonna go. So. I mean, it's just gonna keep evolving, and that's what's cool about this business, right? It just keeps evolving. It's you never know what's gonna come next.
Didn't a certain Hall of Famer say the one thing for sure, or is in one thing for sure about Sting was nothing's for sure, right? Or along those lines. So amazingly, anything can happen in wrestling, which is notable. Now, but with the TNA thing in WWE, because obviously, it's generally AEW have been doing it for a while. Obviously, they have like, the Forbidden Door events every year. This was like real new ground for me. You used to have it back in the Attitude Era when like ECW come in for a couple of weeks and they started doing that thing together. But this is a partnership that's really kind of intriguing because I don't think we've seen the best of it yet. I think maybe we're testing the water with it. But from what you have seen, if you've seen any of it, do you feel this is more, has it benefited more TNA than the WWE, do you think?
I wouldn't say it benefits either company more or less. I think it benefits the business as a whole and also wrestlers and the fans. I think this is fantastic. I mean, think about this, like back in the Attitude Era, like you said, like when these invasions happen, like the ECW thing and all that stuff. I mean, that's a wrestling fan's dream, right? You
Yeah.
you always think of like, hey, what could happen if Sting fights for example, the Ultimate Warrior, like the cross brand promotion stuff. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, it's been really, really good for me as our obviously we're good thing we've got TNA, we're part of TNA media over here, so we get to hear some of the roster and they're really excited and potential matches that you can just maybe ones that we never thought are possible are now potentially possible. But another thing that's happened this past week, and again it's not we've been about its controversy, it was announced that WWE are doing this WWE ID, which is kind of taking an independent lots of independent promotions and I suppose picking their best talents. And from what I read, and again, when I read stuff, I take it with a grain of salt. I'm not one of these that just believes everything that you read, but it's kind of something along the lines of they get first refusal on a talent. So, for example, if the talent's working in, I don't know, Booker T's real quality wrestling, and perhaps New Japan or TNA or something offer that person a contract, WWE can basically say, well, we want him. So I don't know. Again, I don't know the ins and outs of everything, but they seeming to be looking at creating this future, which is giving these independent talents an opportunity. But is that kind of going to hurt the independent scene a little bit, do you think?
I don't know. That's a tough one. I think it could in certain ways, but it can also in other ways help it out a lot. I mean, like now with social media and all this stuff, it gives independent guys a bigger platform, if you will.
Yeah.
And a lot and different guys have different contracts and it's all structured differently and set up differently. So I think the guys that know how to play the game, for lack of a better term, it'll definitely benefit them and it'll definitely help them in the future.
Yeah, definitely so. We'll see what happens with it. It's brand new, so we don't even know the ins and outs of it just yet. But let's talk about your good self. What have you been up to so far? Well, say so far, we're nearly at the end of 2024. What have you been up to this year?
I don't know. I'm sure people have read this on a dirt sheet somewhere. I'm not sure. I don't keep up to date with that anymore. But I did a couple of shows with AEW a
Yep.
while back, and I smashed my whole knee. My I've
Ouch.
been wrestling for 25 years, and this is the first time I've been wrestling inside the ring. You know, all my other injuries were from base jumping and skydiving and motocross. This is the first time I've been injured inside the ring, and it was pretty bad. Usually it's just an ACL or MCL, but somehow they were intact. But my whole patella tendon, the whole kneecap, had to be restructured. So I'm just busy recovering from that. Still, it seems like it's going to take a little bit longer than we even thought. I'm still another 3 or 4 months out before I can be in the ring, and I'm kind of in the ring, back in the gym and everything. I had to cancel a bunch of bookings this month. Just, the promoter was kind of upset, but I'm like, people pay good money to see us, and I don't want to give them uh, anything less than 100% of me. So just been taking time to recover, and I want to come back with a bang. I've got a different look. I'm getting old and gray, so I feel like I'm a little bit more wiser, and I want to finally like bring this Darewolf, this new character, this shaman character that I've like hinted on in the last few years. I want to kind of like fully bring that to life. But this is great time for me too, because I've been filming some vignettes and working on some new music stuff and some character stuff. And once it's ready to go, it's going to be fun.
Interesting times. Was that against Lee Johnson? Was that the Ring of Honor match in May that you done that? Was that before?
Yeah, that was it. That was it.
Yeah, I
Did
do
they
remember.
air that, or did they mention that anyway? I've kind of just been like laying low since then, and then it took a toll on me. Like, wow, like I could show you some. I'll send you some of the footage. I'm doing a recovery documentary, so I had them film the surgery and everything, and it's a pretty bad one because the patella tendon is the kneecap like that, right?
Yeah.
Usually they just graft the top, but they had to graft the top and double stitch the bottom too, because I want to go back to playing sports. I went to go see a sports ortho, a specialist in Beverly Hills who had this done for me. And, like usually they don't do that procedure, but I mean, because I want to go back to playing sports,
Mm.
my competing, if you will, I need to be better than I was before.
So was that actually maybe career threatening then in many ways because of it was you say it's more than just not just a natural injury, I suppose, in a lot of sense. So was there a threat that perhaps it could have stopped you from wrestling full stop?
Yeah, I mean that's a possibility, but never say never. And I've come back from worse. So, I broke both my legs twice,
Yes.
and the doctors the first time they told me I'll never walk again. And I was lying in hospital, and I was like, well, I'm gonna show these guys, the human body is incredibly good at adapting and healing. People don't know, like, you can get all the surgeries and do all the things you want, but like at the end of the day, it's mind over matter, right? You think these things in existence. I don't know if you ever studied the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza. He thinks you can switch on and off genes with just a thought, and it's moving science so far ahead. But I mean, I believe in that stuff. I mean, I read all those books, and um, I experienced all that stuff firsthand. That, like, I mean, if someone tells you you cannot do something, that's when you apply yourself to it, and you prove everybody wrong. So, but the human body is amazing. Like we as humans, we don't really even know what we're capable of. And I mean, I love learning this stuff. I mean, that was one of my passions. Before I was a wrestler, I studied sports science. I wanted to be a physio. So biology and all this stuff, it fascinates me, and it's amazing to see how far we can push our bodies, and this is why I do it too. I push my body to the limits all the time, and I'm never going to stop.
It's quite interesting you mentioned physio. My son plays soccer. He's only like 9. And we were talking the other day, and I said to him, like, have you any
Football.
idea? Yeah, yeah, football. Thank you.
Real
Yeah, yeah,
football.
yeah, yeah. Thanks. Yeah, I never know when to say whether it's football or soccer. But yeah. So he plays football, and I said to him the other day, if you can't be a footballer, what do you want to be? And he actually said, I want to go to college, do sports science, and become a physio. So it was quite interesting
Oh,
that you
amazing.
said that. But I mean, obviously, how long was the actual surgery to fix that thing? Because I can't imagine it was kind of like a quick sort of fix like that. It must have taken a good few hours.
So first they misdiagnosed me. So as the injury happened, right, there was a doctor on site, and she was like, "Can you stand up?" So I tried to stand up, and I just fell over. So initially they thought it was the quad that ripped,
Mm.
and then they brought two other doctors in, and they did the stress test on the knees and stuff. And you know, usually it's ACL or MCL, and those were all intact. So they were kind of confused. So I went to go get stem cells, like we we usually do, right? And after 2 weeks, I was like, wow, nothing is happening. So I went for a second and a third opinion, and I found this, excuse me, sports ortho in Beverly Hills. That's one of the best in the world. And he checked at the MRI, and he's like, no, we got to do surgery now. So now I'm already like 2 or 3 weeks behind. He luckily did the surgery real quick and everything, but and now I'm in recovery mode. And you know, like those 2, 3 weeks that I wasted is adding another 2 months on my recovery, unfortunately. But nothing I can do right now except put the work in.
Wow, that's bad. Because obviously the 2 weeks has taken an extra 2 months. That's the importance, though, isn't it? Because obviously, if you know something is wrong, I mean, you went and got it checked out, so obviously you knew something wasn't right. But obviously, it's been misdiagnosed, and it's sometimes with those sort of things, you get a diagnosis, and you're like, oh, okay, great, and then you just carry on as you normally are. But if you know something isn't quite right, especially in this world, I guess the best thing to do is get it checked again and again and again if you need to.
Oh yeah, I always now. I always go for second and third opinions. Always, always. Brian Cage tore his bicep a while ago too, and
Mm,
they gave him some weird diagnosis, and I was like, dude, just go get a second and third opinion. This is your life, you know, this is your body.
mm.
You wanna get it checked out. So I mean, that's we compete at such a high level. I mean, I know it's not a real sport, but we do real stunts, you know. So
Yeah.
and we need our bodies to perform at optimum level. So I think it's very important to always get a second and third opinion, and I always do that now, no matter how big or small the injury is.
Yeah, definitely. So there's some good advice for our we sponsor a lot of wrestlers over in the UK. So if you're listening to this, and I know you will, because funnily enough, I was talking to one of my wrestling sponsors today, and I said because he said, "Oh, are you free for a conversation later?" And I was like, "No, I'm interviewing Justin Gabriel, PJ Wolf," and his quote was, and I quote him right now, which is his name's Taylor James over here in the UK, and his quote basically said, "Best 450 in the business."
I hear that all the time, and it never gets old.
I can imagine it does. I want to go back to the time in WWE. We interviewed Heath, 6 months or so now. A great interview we had with Heath Slater, and it was great. He was very complimentary of you and everyone really a part of that group, the Nexus. That was I'd say to this day, and Heath didn't necessarily agree with me when I said this, but I'm going to ask you the same thing. I felt that was a massive opportunity that in the end they really wasted, in my opinion. I felt that, and I've seen the interviews about the SummerSlam thing. We've seen maybe going a bit political and whether or not he was him or not had changed the match because it was meant to be you guys going over, from what I remember, and then the match about I think Wade Barrett. Stu Bennett was saying on a tour over here in the UK that you then got called in and it was changed maybe just before. I just felt that it was the right time for you guys, and I think you needed to win that more than perhaps John needed to win at SummerSlam. But was that the real momentum killer at that match, that SummerSlam? Was that the moment when it just kind of after that moment it just kind of dwindled down?
Yeah, I think so, definitely, you know, and we were just so young and so green. We should have fought for our position a little bit harder, you know,
Mm.
but since we were new, we're like, oh, okay, this is what they want now. You know, we didn't know back then that these things are negotiable. We should have, you know, fought harder for it. But at the time, you know, we were just happy to be there and to do our job too. And like, you know, if the writers or Vince comes to you and like, hey, this is what you're gonna be doing, you'd be like, oh, okay, you know, like we learned our lesson from that. I mean, everything that happened after that, we're like, no, no, like here's my pitch. What if we do it this way, or what if we, you know, change it up a little bit? Or you know, at the time, I mean, we made a mistake, and that was definitely the momentum killer. I mean, everyone can agree on that. All parties included, all the fans that watched it, everybody
Mhm.
knows that the outcome should have been different, and then that whole storyline would have probably maybe turned out different. But that's in the past. Nothing we can do now.
No, nothing you can do now. I think I even remember Stu saying that even Edge and Jericho were like, "What the fuck's going on?" basically during that, which was incredible. I just felt like, obviously, I'm not when I say the word NWO, people may sort of snigger and laugh at it, but it had the feel about something was just something was there. I don't necessarily know, and we never will obviously know, as you said, we can't change what's happened in the past, but it had the feel of something special was going to happen with this, and maybe somewhere along the line it could have done. My thing, I presented this to Heath, and I'm by no means a story writer or anything like that. I had it where if they was ever going to thinking about turning maybe John Cena heel, that the best way to do it was actually have him become the one that was going to, but actually was the one that got you in. Basically the whole thing was centered around him. That's how I had it done. But in terms of all that, do you still look back on the time in the WWE with fondness? Because you did have a lot of success in there, barring the fact that they may have dropped the ball here and there. You still won a lot of championships, which will never be taken away from you. So, was your time there still very memorable for a lot of things that you've done?
Oh, totally. Of course. I mean, ever since I was 8 years old, that's what I wanted to do. I remember sitting on the couch and playing Raw on the Sega Mega Drive, and I told
Yeah,
my mom, I was like, this is, I mean, I always knew I was kind of going to wrestling. My dad was a wrestler, right? But I was
yeah,
like, that's what I decided. I was like, that's what I want to do, and I made it to WrestleMania, and I lived the dream. So for me, I cannot complain about any of that time. It was a magical time for me for sure.
yeah. I mean, obviously, not many people make it there. There is wrestlers, and wrestlers will go around and do something, but to make it to the WWE is kind of for a lot of people, it's the end goal. Now, obviously, you mentioned AEW, which is a nice thing to cover on to now because going around when obviously the WWE we had TNA. TNA went to a degree and then it just went down, and luckily, gratefully now it's on its way back up and learned from its mistakes. But we have to have more than one promotion. And I think for a lot of time when WWE was around on its own, not that it could get away with bad writing or bad storytelling or doing it once, but we need, and I think other wrestlers needed that alternate. Do you see your style even now fitting better with like an AEW than more so than a WWE?
I don't know. I think that's what's cool about wrestling right now. I think that any style can fit in anywhere. It's
Yeah.
it's all about this storylines, like you said, and we've been watching wrestling forever, right? So we
Yeah.
we all think like we can write stories better, or some of us be like, oh no, I'm not a story writer, but we all are storytellers. That's what we do. That it's about it's more about the story than it is about the style. I think the style would always adapt to whatever the story is that you're trying to tell. But yeah, I mean, for me personally, I think my style I can just fit in anywhere. Like I've evolved and so much since then too. Like I was just known as a high flyer, or as
Mm.
as a whatever one trick pony some people would say. But like I've evolved. I'm actually a really good technical wrestler, and like my character work now is like I think much better than my wrestling, and I haven't yet been able to show people that. But I mean, um, there's still a lot of time.
Yeah, no, there definitely is, and it's exciting. Does it feel exciting now that you're changing that character? And you said it's been because of the injury and stuff. You haven't managed to get it presented out there in the way that you do. But is it still exciting now when you change your character and you get to that point where you're like, this is something that, and you can sense that it's working. You're changing, although you've not got it out there. You're sitting there and you're going this, and you're getting so excited. Is there still that excitement in there in you to present this character to the world?
Oh yeah, and it's like it evolves, right? Like sometimes it feels like you're just going through the motions, and then you try something new, and you're like, oh wow, that works. The response from the fans is great, so I'm gonna work on that and then improve on that. And it's like you're always just as good as your last match too, right? Just sometimes you'll have a bad match and like, man, this sucks. I'm gonna retire. Maybe I should do something different. And then you have that one good match, and you're like, all right, I'm back. So that's what's so cool about this business. It's just always evolving, and you have to just keep adapting. Like I tell the story all the time. Like you see guys like Chris Jericho. How many
Oh,
how many times has he evolved through the years? And then you get a guy like Rey Mysterio. He's Rey Mysterio. He doesn't need to do anything. He can just be. But as the business evolves, we evolve, and like as people too. And you want to wrestling for me is like it's an express it's a piece of art for me. This is the way I express myself. So when I like do something new or different, it's like, hey world, look, this is me. And now that I'm PJ Black, I'm not I don't have the proverbial handcuffs on, I don't have to do what the writers tell me to do. I have a more creative freedom, so it's kind of cool. And I mean, who knows? Maybe I'll end up in one of those shows and I have to like follow the script, if you will, too. But I mean, you make it work. You see what you can get away with, and that's what's so cool about this business. There's all these little nuances that a lot of fans probably don't understand or never will understand. But I mean, that's why we enjoy this. It's like, we blur those lines. And it's fun. And it's supposed to be fun. I mean, some people take this stuff too seriously. I teach a lot of seminars these days, and I tell these kids, don't take it too seriously. Like, sure, you wanna be good, do good at it, but trust me, people that do good at stuff in life are usually people that don't take it too seriously. Like or don't look like you're trying to take it seriously. Like, I mean, you can inside, but don't let the world know that.
It's really weird that you said that because I was interviewing somebody just the other day, like someone in the UK. He's done a bit in Japan with United Empire and stuff like that. His name is Gideon Gray. And he said exactly the same thing. The reason why he likes it so much is because he doesn't take it seriously. And it just popped into my head as you said. It was really weird. Someone that did take wrestling seriously though, and I just want to get your opinion on working with him because was one of the most very serious wrestlers in terms of putting matches together. And you had the pleasure of working with him, and that was Bret Hart over at SummerSlam. Was he still as like serious then as when he was back in like the 90s doing it?
Who knows? I wasn't there in the 90s to work with him, but I
No.
mean, he's one of those guys that, he takes stuff very, very seriously. He's probably one of the only guys in the world that takes it super seriously, or one of like the top guys. But a lot of people tell a lot of crazy stories about him, and I've heard a lot of stories about him. But I've worked. Nexus
Yep.
worked the Heart Foundation at Madison Square Garden. It was a live event. It was never televised, and it was awesome. I love the guy. I mean, I've always been a fan of his work. Uh, but yeah, he's one of the guys that can get away with being too serious about it.
The only other one maybe is the Undertaker, for what he done. And again, you made perfect point there. You mentioned Jericho. The Undertaker was exactly the same. He got to a point where he felt that times that I've listened to his podcast thing he does on YouTube, and he was saying that it got to a point where he didn't feel as if he could be the Undertaker now because to seeing so many of these great promos, Austin, Rock, Triple H doing these great, and he felt like he was kind of his character was kind of dwaning away in the Attitude, so he had to make that change. Similar to what you're saying now is. And more so now because, as you say, those handcuffs are off when you're on the independent, and you can basically get away with a lot more stuff. But your case in point there is when it's time for a change, you've got to evolve in the business, and you're doing that right now.
Yeah, and to me, it's about having fun. It's supposed to be fun. Like you can take it seriously, but don't forget to have fun. Think about this: when you're a fan, you're sitting in the front row. If the guys in there are having fun, you're having fun.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's subconsciously. Sometimes you don't really know that's what's happening, right? But if you're having fun, you're doing a good job. Like it's we all know the business. We know what it's like, right? But it's like watching a movie. The movie's not real, but you go there to be entertained. You wanna live vicariously through the other characters, and that shows, man. Like honestly, like if you go watch a match. And again, maybe it's subconsciously, maybe it's not something you can put your finger on, but you can tell, like, oh wow, this guy's just kind of going through the motions. Maybe he's jet lagged, maybe he's tired, maybe he's a little bit injured. A lot of us work injured, and
Yep.
we have to work around those things. But I mean, if you watch a match and you can tell, like, wow, these guys are having fun, like you have fun too. That's just how it is.
That is certainly how it definitely is. I mean, I try to when I watch it, I'm not a cheerer or a booer. I kind of like tunnel vision it and just try and what I've done wrestling training for a month. It hurt too much for me. I'm not a pain threshold just wasn't there. I can't imagine going through what you've been going through with your knee. But yeah, I'm very much tunnel vision, watch around, look for little bits and pieces, and yeah, so I'm one of those ones that tries to understand it more so, and I've done it to a degree, and nowhere near, as I say, a couple of body slams and a couple of hitting the ropes, and I just knew that I was never going to be able to take, because I was talking to a lot of them, a lot of the wrestlers, and they say, your kind of body gets immune to it after a certain point. I couldn't get to that.
It's
Um,
true, and it's also like now that I'm out, it's like my body hurts more. It's like
mm,
the less you do it, like the more it hurts. It's so weird. It's so weird how the body like adapts, and I almost like I won't say like craves it, but like if I'm not taking bumps, it's like my body hurts more. It's almost like I'm getting a free adjustment, like when I take bumps and hit the ropes. It's so weird how the body works. And I mean, I can only speak for myself. I've been doing this for 20, 25 years now, and it's like the longer I'm out, the more my body hurts. It's like when I take bumps every day, then I'm okay.
that's weird. As you say, I suppose it's the body just becoming immune to what you're doing and doing your job that you do so well. You mentioned there are seminars, and you're doing a lot of seminars now. What, other than not taking it like so seriously, or trying to not take it seriously, what's the other best advice that you give talent when you're doing the seminars now?
Oh wow, there's so many. I have like this list, and I try to teach because I've wrestled in 66
Yep.
countries. I've wrestled for all the big promotions. When I was young, I did seminars, as many seminars as possible. The best advice I can give new guys is just do as many seminars as possible and just go study like the old stuff. Dr. Tom Pritchard used to say this, whatever's old is new and what's new is old. Like you can go back, like think about this, like all storylines are kind of like regurgitated, like
Yep.
or like characters and coming back to what you said about Nexus, the reason that felt so special and unique is because it was something completely new. Maybe it was like the NWO in a way, but it was something completely different, like when you get given a storyline on TV or you pitch a character, you always draw from old school stuff, right? There's always like something and you play around with it. But the Nexus stuff, there was nothing for us to refer to. So we had to kind of like just make stuff up on the fly. And a lot of that stuff was just that we thought of on the day, and then that's what made it so special because it was very, very, very different.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, as I said at the time, it was brilliant. It was kind of engrossing more so at the time because you're looking at it and you're like, and you had so many different types of. I think like the characters were different as well. Obviously, you had Ryback back in there was before he was Ryback, obviously, and then you had Heath, you had Michael Tarver, you had yourself, you had Wade, and there was just so many different elements to the group as well. And I think that's what made it interesting. Obviously, Daniel Bryan for a brief moment before he got fired straight away. But it was that kind of each and every one of you had such a different type of character. And I think that's what made it unique as well.
Yeah, totally. And like, wow, what a fun time that was. Like, I mean, before Nexus started, it was like the NXT
Yep.
reality show, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's
Yes.
where it all started.
Yes.
Dude, like, that show was supposed to be something completely different. Also, it was supposed to be like the Ultimate Fighter, where we all live in this house and we compete. It was like a reality show, but in true wrestling fashion, time ran out, and 2 days before, they're like, "Oh shoot, we haven't rented the house yet. We don't have anything in place. I guess we'll just do this like on the fly wrestling show."
My God, I would have loved to have seen that. The only thing I can think of it more is when the WWE Network first came out, they brought out Legends House, was it? And they
That's what it
had
was supposed to be like, and because they still had that idea, so like, okay, what can we use that for? And I guess yeah, Legends it was, and they had a bunch of other shows too. I remember when before I left, like we all heard about the network, and
Mm.
and again, this is not something that we knew in wrestling, like like so we had to come up with all these ideas and these wrestling shows. Like I wrote so many shows back then that at the time they didn't like the ideas, but then years later they did use those ideas. So I was like, oh wow, okay, cool. At least they used my ideas. A lot of people will be mad, like, oh, that was my idea. And I was just like, I was really stoked. I was like, wow, that was a great idea that I had.
It's quite weird because I always felt like Matt Cardona. I always felt that they may have resented him for becoming so over. He was social media before social media was a thing.
Yeah.
And I always feel that sometimes they kind of feel like we should have come up with that idea. Do you know what I mean? And then like someone like Matt, who's gone on and done great things now, obviously he's been out and there's obviously talks coming back, but because he was so good at doing that stuff before they were pushing it, I felt like perhaps they were a little bit resentful of it.
Yeah, I mean, he was definitely the trendsetter. But, there was them to push us to that. Like
Mm,
we had weekly meetings and they were like, hey, you guys got to think outside the box, reach for the brass ring. I'm sure you've heard that.
yeah.
Punk tells that story all the time, and he reached, he did. They came up with these like tentative ideas and he took the ball and he ran with it. And like you said, they were probably like, oh, shoot. I mean, why did we not think of that stuff?
Yeah, it is. It just felt that way anyway, their perspective or from outside looking in. It felt that way. Just before we start wrapping up now, I just want to say, you say about music changes. What's going on there with your music?
Oh no, I mean, I don't know if you've heard my latest song. I've been using it for quite a few years. I actually did a
Yeah.
podcast with a guy who did it just before this.
Ah,
And we're gonna just tweak a little bit something. I want to just add some stuff into the chorus, and we're gonna add some vocals over it. It's gonna be the same kind of concept, but just so I gotta make some tweaks here and there. Got some new gear, some some a whole new move set coming, and
in-
just you gotta evolve. It's fun to I love doing new things all the time.
interesting stuff. Is the injury going to affect some of the moves? You have to sort of tweak your move set slightly when you get an injury like you've got.
So I did that when I broke my legs the first
Mm.
time. I kind of like toned it down a little
Yeah,
bit, and I'm actually a really good technical wrestler. I
yeah,
lived in England
yeah,
between 2000 and 2005. I love that style.
yeah.
I'm really good at it, like but I'm good at the high flying stuff too. So I kind of do whatever I feel like, like I'll do matches sometimes where I don't even like come off the top rope at all, and then other matches I'll do like 5, 6 dives in the match. It really just depends. Um, I hope it doesn't hold me back. So far, it's okay. From past experience, as long as I put the work in the rehab and get everything done, taken care of properly, then I should be able to get back where I was. But again, I'm constantly changing, and I'm going to evolve the style. If I could have it my way, I'd be I'd wrestle like Zack Saber, but
Yeah.
look like the Ultimate Warrior. That's like if I could be my perfect wrestling character. My what do you call it when these guys do these CADs? That's
Create a cool thing. Create a wrestler, right?
yeah, that's right. That's in my head. That's what I want to be.
It's interesting you mentioned Zack Sabre Jr. We've got a wrestler over here in the UK that is very technical. His name's Connor Mills. He's a combination of strong style and technical. And
I
he's
like that.
he's kind of the closest we've got to Zack Sabre. Obviously, Zack Sabre Jr. is English, obviously, but he's wrestling over in Japan and doing really well. So yeah, Connor Mills is. I mean, you should maybe have a look at him when you get a second. But you just touched on music quickly before we wrap up, and we were talking to Mikey Ruckus, who does the AEW music for AEW, and he was like, the first beat is can be massively important to know what's going on. We mentioned like the Austin Glass Smash, the Triple H, the If You Smell, and all of that stuff. Is it sort of how important is music to a character for you, for argument's sake?
Oh, it's very important. Not only in wrestling and in all sports and even in movies. Like think about it. Like the sounds, it creates the experience, right? It sets up the tone. Like look at horror movies. They always have that same pitch, same tone. You
Yeah,
get the noise and stuff like that. Music it invokes a certain emotion, if you will, right? And that's what we do. Like we play with people's emotions. It's a story, it's a soap opera, right? And it's about emotion. So music is very important because it attaches a certain emotion to it. I mean, think of it when Randy's music hit, you know exactly what's coming. You know
yeah,
exactly, right? It's very important. And it's not only in wrestling and in all forms of sport, entertainment and storytelling, but in wrestling it's very important because it's all those things combined. It's a show, it's a drama, it's a soap opera, it's sports, it's athletics, it's everything. So yeah, the music plays a massive role in that.
yeah. It certainly does. A friend of mine, just quickly as we wrap up, I said, "Can you ask PJ?" They first saw you, the FWA Academy Power Play 2 against Paul Burchill. Do you remember that one?
Oh wow, I'll never forget that. Um, so at the time, my finish was actually a Phoenix Star Splash,
Yep.
and I wanted to attempt to do a springboard one in that match. And I remember just being so freaking tired. I couldn't springboard. I couldn't do it. So I was like, I'm just gonna hit the normal full 50. And I climbed up and it was probably like the cleanest one I've ever hit. And since that day, like Mark Sloan and everyone is like, yo, that should be your finish for life now. That should just be it. So I love that match. I'll never forget that. I think it was one of my first matches in FWA actually.
Yeah, February 2004, he said. There
Wow.
you go. There you go.
20 years ago. 20 years ago.
20 years ago, yeah. What was I then? 2000. I'm 20. Yeah, 40 now. Yeah, geez, 20.
Wow.
That's incredible to think about. I definitely want you to come over back over to the UK and wrestle again over here in the UK. We work with some promotions over here on the Turnbuckle. So if there's ever a UK tour that you're doing, make sure you let us know because we've actually got a championship over here in the UK. And
Oh, that'll be fantastic. You know, like I still have a South African passport. I live in the US. I have a
yes,
green card. Still have to get a visa
yes.
to to go to the UK. I
Yeah.
can get a Schengen visa to go to all of Europe except England, which is so. And I go to Europe all the time. I actually had to cancel my bookings in France this year. I usually go for the summer. I go to France, and I last year I went to. It was supposed to be in Romania and. Maybe Czech Republic, I forget somewhere, but I mean, next time I do that tour, I'll get the UK visa so I can come.
Please so, because I would love you to face. Well, he may not be our champion when you come down, but currently we've got a great champion. It'd be great for you to go one-on-one with him and perhaps take that championship back to America with you. We'll have to see. But PJ, it's been great to talk to you this evening for me, this afternoon for you.
Yeah.
Look, before you go across, let people know where can they help you on social media. When are you available for bookings, and if so, where can they reach out to you to get it?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully I'll be ready for bookings in the next couple of months. You just have to keep an eye out on the social media. Very active on Instagram. It's PJ450. Twitter or X as it's called
Mm.
now. It's
Yeah.
Daryl333. I should probably be a little bit more active on there, but you know, it's hard when you're injured. I wanna just kind of like lay low and then come back with a bang.
Definitely so. Well, hopefully we'll see you back with a bang very, very soon. I hope the rest of the recovery goes really, really well, PJ. And we look forward to seeing you on our TVs, on our shows in the future. But thank you so much for taking your time today. And we look forward to seeing you in the future for sure.
Oh, thanks, Adam. Thanks so much. It's always fun talking wrestling, and hopefully I'll get to see you in the UK next year. Let's hope.
Definitely so. Guys, this has been the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. He has been the amazing PJ Black. I have been your host, Adam Cousins. And until next time, everybody, buckle down, stay safe, and good night.